Hello everybody. Today what we're going to do is again continue on with our vine charcoal. So you should have that available, and of course another sheet of newsprint. I didn't mention before last time that sometimes I like to stack a few sheets of newsprint on top of each other because it adds a little softer of a surface. If you were having trouble, or since we are going to start doing a little bit more accurate type of line today, that might be something that you might want to do, especially if you have like an old drawing board that you've been drawing on for years, or whatever, possibly a few stacks of paper. And I didn't mention last time that it's good to always tear out a sheet of paper from your sketchbook or your drawing pad. I saw that a lot of your demos, which looked great. I really enjoyed what was happening last time. But remember to tear off a sheet of paper, free it up from the binder or the sketchbook, and so you can place that anywhere, and you don't have to worry about that thickness of the sketchbook. But today we're going to also go into erasing to find the line. And that's what our assignment is today, is to be able to find the perfect line on a curved form or on any form. And how we do that is we almost carve charcoal off the paper to find the line. So you're going to see that drawing sometimes is not unlike sculpture or modeling, where you apply a material, and after you apply that material, you take your erasers and you erase away to find that perfect edge. So sometimes the negative process of taking away or subtracting is the way that we actually do a lot of our drawing. We'll be doing some erase away drawings to practice more of that. But as you can see in my hand, I have a few types of erasers here. Hopefully you guys do have some supplies. What I do have here first is a plastic eraser or a vinyl eraser, simply called just a white eraser. And you can see how that is a white vinyl. This is a really hard eraser. People use this to erase almost anything, but it will rip through your paper because it's a little bit more harder of a material. It's a vinyl. Even ink, it can erase away, so you're going to need a really hard or tough archival paper. Probably not the best thing to use on our newsprint, but if that's all you have, that'll work. Remember, erasers aren't just to take away material, they're to actually draw with. So they're almost as important as the medium that you're using, especially in charcoal and graphites and these types of processes. Next, we have your kneaded eraser, okay, which eventually is just going to look like a plastic malleable material. What we do with the kneaded eraser is you knead it into specific shapes, so you can then draw with it or carve with it. So it can be a blunt round form that you can erase or spread charcoal, and you can also sharpen it up to a nice wedge, okay, to get really fine subtraction or carving. So it's a very malleable material. How you clean this is you just keep kneading it and squeezing it in any charcoal or graphite that you have, and that will be cleaned off. And then what we have here is a brown eraser or a gum eraser, which is a very old school type of eraser, but it's good for softer paper and more delicate types of paper. Okay, there's all types of paper out there that artists like to draw on. So these are just your basic erasers, and I mention them because a lot of drawing supplies, you have various types of the same thing. Well, they're all used for something specific, just like pencils, right? You have your 2B, your 2 HBs or whatever, and they're all specific for hardnesses. Same thing with your erasers. Today, what I need you to have is your gum eraser. Okay, so once you get it out of the package, go ahead and squeeze it up. And get used to holding on to it with your opposite side of your hand. We're also going to need our charcoal, our vine charcoal. Remember, I am using the same charcoal as last time, which would be the willow charcoal, okay, or any vine charcoal. So what we're doing today is we're going to continue on with holding on to our medium properly. like we did last class. And but today we're going to be doing some wider forms, and again we're trying to find the line and do things a little more accurate. Okay, but a lot of things that we're going to be drawing eventually have to do with curved forms, right? And how do we get accurate curved forms and accurate geometric shape? We'll be working with geometric shape more so after this, and I'll be providing more demos for you so we can start stacking up some of these assignments on top of each other, since some of you guys are getting a lot more experience and are ready to do that. What I want you to do is go ahead and remember to stand properly. You should be, if you're sitting on the ground or on a table, make sure your posture is proper. If you're standing, make sure you try to stand in that nice bow and arrow warrior pose that we talked about last time, and be sure that you are holding onto your medium properly. All right. And what I want you to do is to think about layers or rows, I'm sorry, of shapes. So we're going to do 3, okay, shapes and 3 rows down, okay? And if I can fit a few more in, I'll do that. But what you're going to do is you're going to stand there, make sure you are feeling that paper, and we're going to be doing some diagonal or some angled ovals, okay? And you see how I'm flowing my hand. I'm making sure that I'm locking my wrist somewhat, and I'm using my shoulder and my elbow to do a lot of the movement. Again, feel your paper. And when you're ready, okay, you're going to tap down, okay, and you're going to do a series of marks, okay. And you see how there's multiple lines that I put in there to create this oval shape that's at an angle. Think about it as a 45 or so degree angle. Okay, and the reason why we're going to be doing a lot of these types of gestures, and that's what we're also doing, is a gesture. Okay, a gesture is a quick mapping of a shape or a form. This is more of a gesture movement, since we're not actually looking at an object or drawing a still life right now, but the movement is still a gesture because we're gesturing a shape right now. It's not the completed shape, because you know there's various lines here. We don't know where the oval ends or begins, but that's where your eraser comes in to then carve and find that perfect line. Because all the movements that you were doing, the multiple flow, believe it or not, the perfect shape is in there. Okay, and that's why the gesture is important in art, right? We create that gesture of the object with plenty of material, right, in order to find it somewhere in there. It's almost like a stone sculptor seeing the image in the stone before he or she or they carve it, right? It's in there somewhere. You're subtracting the material and finding it. Okay, see how I'm lifting my finger so I don't tear into my paper. Okay, lightly, making sure you're breathing as you're doing it. Okay, and you're lightly making that line. Okay, maybe go the opposite direction. Try to get that top curve. Okay, and you see how I've got 3 good ovals. Okay, at a 45 degree angle. And I want you to do the same thing. Now, what I'm doing, I'm not bending my back down. I'm kind of squatting my knees a little bit down, because when we draw, we're almost like a compass, right? We're staying level, right? Or your arm's like an instrument. Okay, go down. Keep your body down, not just your arm or your neck. Okay, so I'm kind of bending my knees a little bit, doing the same thing, touching that paper, maybe going the opposite direction. Now, if you're getting some lift on your paper, well, go ahead and put a couple strips of tape on the edges, okay, and hold that down a little bit. Okay, again, try it again, focusing, opposite direction, and again, keep it moving, and again, opposite side. Somewhere in that area is the perfect shape. Okay, one more time, and try your best to make them as even as possible, or as long or thick as possible. Try consistency here and breathing. Remember, don't worry about smudging or anything like that. Good. Don't worry about anything right now. Just feel the paper, control the movement. Okay, so after you've done that first sheet, what I want you to do is go ahead and take that first sheet off and just get a clean sheet up. I want you to save all these drawings, even though that doesn't seem like a you know, piece of art right now, but go ahead and keep that, and I want you to continue on again one more time, okay, holding on to your medium properly, okay, and I'm going to do a little bit faster. Again, try to keep that 45-degree angle, okay, flowing nicely. Again, move to the side. I'm actually just stepping to the side as well. I'm not just arching or creating a curve with my waist. I'm actually taking a step, okay, and try to make it as even as a height as possible, so you're going to have somewhat of a good, okay, down again, and to the side, touching that paper, making sure I have plenty of material to use when I begin to carve. Okay. Try the opposite direction. There you go. Okay. Again, down, bending my knees a little bit so I can get that centered. Okay. It's a little more difficult down here at the bottom. Again, maybe hold on to your paper or tape it down. Okay, take your time. Okay, good. All right, let's do that one more time. That's two. Okay, you see how I like to have my paper ripped out, ready to go. Sometimes it's all about momentum. Okay, move that to the side. Go ahead and just toss that into the living room or wherever you are. Don't worry about if anybody steps on it or whatever. It doesn't matter. Okay. Ooh, a little. Okay. And why we're doing this is so you really get the feel of the movement of the gesture. Because we're going to have to use this movement, this swift movement, okay, to quickly map out a still life or a drawing. You know, drawing's also about efficiency. You know, you can imagine, you know, in the 18th or 19th century, you know, the painters and drawers having to go out into the field or onto the lake or wherever where they wanted to draw, in the tavern or you know, out amongst the people. You know, you couldn't just wait for life to stop. You had to work with it. You had to move and gesture with it to get the accuracy, but also to capture it. You know, so the gesture is very important for that. Okay, to capture it quickly. Okay, because you know we only have so much time to finish and commit to our drawing. So learning how to gesture fast is going to help you with that completion. Okay, so after you practice that a good maybe 3-4 times, minimum 3 times is my suggestion. Then I want you to go ahead and get a hold of your kneaded eraser. And what I want you to do is start up here and just start erasing and carving. Okay, where you think that edge is. You see how I'm just same thing. I'm holding on to my eraser just how you naturally would hold on to it. There's no pinching or anything like that. But you see how as I'm carving, okay, I'm finding that proper shape. That's important. Finding that proper shape. It's in there. Okay. We don't have to add charcoal just yet. We're going to try to find it here. You see how I'm just getting rid of that overlap. And believe it or not, this is how we get proper or perfect shape, or the illusion of perfect shape. Drawing's all about an illusion. You're in control when you make a piece of art or a drawing. Okay, and the reason why gesturing is important is because a lot of art and drawing is not about making things look perfect or the attempt of perfection. Sometimes when we look at a lot of modern art or any type of expressive work, it's not completely accurate or photographic, because the artist wants you to join in on the conversation with your imagination. You fill in the blanks as a viewer when you look at a Picasso, right? That's half completed, or it's a fragmented image that's not like a realistic, Renaissanceian painting, right? But what that Picasso piece is doing, or the Van Gogh piece, or the Monet's, all these beautiful impressionist works of art, they're allowing you to play a role. Your imagination, you fill in the blanks. Okay, they're not trying to control every thought or every metaphor, allowing you to be a part of the narrative, or whatever you think of or see in that abstraction, or in that gesture, or all that layering of charcoal or pencil, or any medium. And you can see how, they're not the most perfect diagonal oval forms, but they're still graceful. They're still interesting to look at. So you can see how the kneaded eraser really becomes a carving tool. Okay, and that's why the gesture is important. Also, is to lay down enough material, so then you have the ability to find it within the mark or the gesture. Eventually, we're going to be trying to go so thin. See how that's a pretty thick line, right? Eventually, okay, we're going to have to go really thin inside there to find that edge. Okay, and that's because later on, when we start tones, our tones, or the tone on a geometric shape or whatever, right? There's no line separating tones, right? It's two shades creating an edge. If you ever look at a tip of a plateau or an edge of a plateau, in a photograph, or if you've ever been to the Southwest, you'll see that plateau looks like a line in a horizon because of the breakage of that light from the edge of that plateau. There's no line creating that edge. It's the light and dark tone creating that edge, that contrast, creating that edge. Okay, so we need to be able to get our lines as thin as possible, so when we start adding tones, okay, the tones create the line or the edge, not a line. And that's what's great about drawing, right? There's so many tricks to achieve that illusion. Now, of course, when we're doing more graphic type of art or cartooning, right, you want a line, you want an edge, you want a hard, heavy, graphic, bold line. Okay, but that's a whole different type of drawing, and we'll get into that. We'll eventually get into mechanical techniques. How do we draw mechanical geometric shapes? You can see I'm continuing on. I'm going to finish one more. Okay, finding that edge. Okay, whatever you think the proper edge is within that gesture. Find that edge. Okay. Now, you guys can spend as much time as you want. I got a little bit of emptiness here, but I can definitely redraw that. But you can see how, within that movement and putting plenty of material down, I can now carve to find that edge. After you're done with that, okay, I want you to try to define the line now. Okay, so step 1, gesture. Step 2, carve to find that edge. Carve that edge out. Okay. Step 3, define the line. Meaning that I'm going to get back to my pose, grab my charcoal again, and now do a little bit more controlled edge. Okay. I still want to move gracefully. Okay. But now I have more of a guide here. Okay. So I'm not tracing over necessarily, but I'm trying to follow where I found, okay, what I thought or think is the proper edge. Okay, so again, a little bit more, making sure you put a little more pressure on. There we go. And find that edge a little bit more clearly. Because, you know, that erased edge is being a guide, okay? So that gesture helped me out. Now I'm defining it just a little bit more. Still want you to try to move gracefully, but you're going a little bit more accurately, okay? And again, don't worry if it's not perfect. It's not what matters. It's more that you're controlling the movement, letting it flow a little bit. Again here, trying to find that line. Let that erase away drawing guide you just a bit, but flow. Down here. Remember, concentrate on the wrist and the elbow and the shoulder all at the same time to let it move. All right. Once you're done with that, okay, grab your eraser again, okay, and do the carving one more time. Okay, let me start up here again. And each time you are going to erase or carve, you're going a little bit more accurate and trying to get that line just a little bit more thinner each and every time. Again, finding the edge. Okay, moving this way. And at this point, we can go ahead and switch over a little bit as we're going, all right, to go ahead and try to find, I can add a little bit more material. So we can switch up a little bit now because we're trying to be a little more accurate. That's why we're defining it. Okay, over here I see a little bit of a kind of a bend that I don't really like. I want to try my best to add some material there. So when I do take it, I can probably find that. I'm going to try to carve this edge here down. Okay, and always switch up. You know, free your hand up. Make sure you are switching up your medium. See how I've sharpened that to kind of a wedge. Okay, so I can gently find that proper edge. That's why charcoal, or a good example of how forgivable charcoal is. But it likes you to interact with it. You know, you need to move it around. Okay, much better. Okay, coming over here to this side, doing it again. Got kind of a wild curve here, okay, but I'm going to try to find it. That one went off a little bit. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more material here. It's almost like adding clay. You know, you need some clay onto that wire form so you can find that shape. It's in there. And what's interesting is each one of these little, you know, these little ovals, these eggs, or, you know, maybe it's a nice happy face slanted sideways. You know, they're all going to have their little different character about them. You know, the little unique shape. Okay, just like all of us. All of us have the same basic shape head. Oh, a little different. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and continue on with my erasing, with my adding and erasing now. But remember, what you are wanting to do is about 3 sheets of paper, okay, with your rows and columns of your 45-degree angle oval. And I would choose probably the one that, the sheet of paper that you thought was the best series of ovals, and use that one to do this part, the erase away, finding the edge. Okay, remember, step 1, gesture. Step 2, okay, carve, find the edge. Step 3, define the line. And that's what I'm doing right now. I'm defining the line. I'll finish that up, and we'll be back. I also forgot to mention that if you are not drawing on a large 8 by 18 by 24 sheet of newsprint, go ahead and do separate ovals for your in your sketchbook. So separate ovals, one oval per sheet of paper, probably 6 to 8 sheets of paper, and then maybe choose 3 ovals or 3 sheets of paper that you've gestured to do the erase away drawings. So here I go again. A little more close up to hopefully see the mark making. Plenty of material. Go the opposite direction. Touch your paper. So here's a little close-up of the little process here. Remember, defining that edge. So you can see how I have some lines here that I can begin to take away from, shaping my kneaded eraser how I want it. Okay, again, remember we've learned how to shape or acknowledge our or notice the fact that we have our angles, and I'm making sure I'm using a line or an angle that's proper, and I'm adding material so then I can carve away. There we go. Up here, same thing, adding a little bit more material. Okay. Still holding on to my medium properly. Attempting to get it as thin as possible. So, you know, it's partly getting a proper movement with your gesturing and carving away as much as you can and adding, just like a sculptor would with clay, until you get that proper edge. So, you know, nice little trick on how to get defined line. Okay, so I have it done as much as, you know, we need to define that edge. I'm going to do a little zoom in here to show you guys. And you can see how, yeah, you know, I mean, they're pretty nice shapes. The curves are graceful. They're not jaggedy or pointed. They're all different, and that's okay. But most importantly, that the line is gracefully curving with movement. So go ahead and finish that up, and then we're going to continue on to the final part of the process, because this has taken us into what we call linear drawing. And linear is easily explained as line drawing. But before most images are created, again, in these traditional materials of paint and printmaking and drawing, you know, we're needing to have a good linear drawing to outline everything. And it's also a good way to create large murals. If you've ever seen a mural in progress, you'll see that before they lay down any color, more importantly if it's a mural with representational imagery and symbolism, it'll be a line drawing. Diego Rivera, the Mexican muralist, if you ever go online and Google his drawings for his large murals, you'll see some beautiful linear drawings of some very complex cultural themes. Okay, now for the final step of the process, to define that line, I want you to go ahead and grab a hold of your charcoal pencil. And all that is a piece of hard charcoal or compressed charcoal, which we'll be using your thick blocks of compressed charcoal later on. And it just has a regular pencil covering over it, but we can get a little more sharper of an edge, and in order to define that line for the last time. What this is called is the ghost line. So again, step 1, you're going to gesture. Step 2, you're going to get your gum eraser and carve the line, carve the edge, find the edge, and then you're going to define the edge with your charcoal, your vine charcoal, and then final step with your charcoal pencil, do the ghost line. If you don't have a charcoal pencil, then a regular pencil will work. You might have a good Pro Art or a good drawing pencil, and I think the softest one that I have that might be in your kit is the 4B, and that's a pretty soft graphite, and that'll work for the ghost lining as well. Okay, so all you're going to do now is still grab a hold of your medium properly. Even though it is a pencil, grab a hold of that properly, and I want you to now slowly and gracefully follow that defined edge. A lot of these techniques are really old school sign painting techniques as well. So even though it's an art class, if you look at any sign that's been painted, especially back in the day, a lot of these techniques of making curved lines and graceful curved lines, is the same that we're doing now. One trick that I like to use is I like to look at the tip or about a 1/4 inch beyond the tip of my graphite or my medium. So if I'm looking at this part of the paper, not at my tip, believe it or not, your hand will follow your eye. So kind of look ahead of your medium, and you'll see that that's going to give you a more graceful, a more focused line, because your hand will follow your eye. Again, I'm looking here. Oop, I don't know if you guys can see that, but I'm looking about right in front. Okay, so I'm going to try to make that line. Again, follow that edge. Okay, again. Very important to breathe and to focus on that. Don't worry if you go off a little bit. It's okay. You're practicing. Doesn't matter that much. So I'm going to do this one. I'm going to finish this one out. Again, I'm looking ahead of my medium. To do that final edge. If you mess up, well, don't worry about it. Get your eraser, see if you can get that cleaned up there. It's going to be a little more difficult because it's a little harder of a medium. Okay, final one. Breathe. I'm looking at about a 1/4 inch in front. So I'm almost looking at where I would want my line to be. And after you're done with that, okay, since it is a harder medium, okay, and remember when we are going to do our tones and our geometric shapes to try to get them into the 3 dimension by adding shading and tones, we need that edge of that object to be as thin as possible. Okay, so after you do your ghost line, go ahead and just do a complete erase rub to get rid of all the vine charcoal. And what's going to happen is that your the ghost line of your compressed charcoal will stay, creating a nice edge, clean edge. As clean as you can get, of course. And of course, we're going to do this to every oval to practice our ghost lining. Oops, oh, there it is. So I'm just going to go ahead and continue on with my ghost lining. I've completed those at the top. Again, remember the term is linear drawing is what we are proceeding into. So I'm going to hold my medium correctly. And keep your medium fairly sharp. Of course, remember, we don't want a good sharp point. We just want to keep it somewhat sharp. I like to use a regular old pocket knife instead of a pencil sharpener because I like the random carving that it gives me. And it, of course, gives me a more random line. Okay, a pencil sharpener should work just fine too. And remember, this is a little more involved than our weave drawing. So take a break, stop, get a drink of water or take a look outside or something, and take a break. Always make art when it feels good. I think that's the most important thing about making art is make sure you are feeling good when you're making art. And that's what's, I think, the luxury of doing these videos online is, you have all the time in the world. Well, almost all the time in the world. Again, I'm using my kneaded eraser now to create that ghost line. And remember, there's no right or wrong. There's no wrong oval. They're all going to look interesting because, like I have said before, as long as you commit to the task or the drawing and try your best, it's going to look interesting. Okay, well, here is the finished linear drawing of our ovals. So remember the process, and we're going to be starting this same process with every drawing that we're going to be doing, and you pretty much do the same process with drawing any object or anything when dealing with charcoal. So remember, your first step is to gesture, flowing movement, making sure you are using the full arm and the full shoulder. All those things we did on the weaving. 2, you're going to grab your gum eraser and find that edge. Okay, make sure you have enough charcoal on there, you have enough material, enough gesturing so you can carve. You need material in order to subtract, to find that edge. And then after that, you're going to grab your charcoal pencil and you're going to define that line. Okay, and do the ghost line. After you ghost line, okay, looking at about a 1/4 inch in front of your tip of your charcoal pencil or your regular pencil, okay, and make sure you are holding on to that medium, even though it's a pencil, okay, the proper way. So observe your drawing. This is not, a highly symbolic representational image, but remember, there still is some interesting things happening because of the layering of those ovals or those forms. And that layering and that erasing and that working, creates almost a vibration. They're not just these stagnant forms. They're kind of wiggling and moving, having a conversation. I see a couple here, that are a little bit closer. One's moving away from the other, so, always look at some of the negative space, this, compression of form. Remember, you have your positive space and then you have your negative space. And with the layering and the gesturing, right, it's almost creating, some tones. More importantly, remember that you spent a good amount of time on this drawing, so it has your energy and it has your work, which more importantly, again, makes it another drawing that never existed before. Okay, your first linear drawing. Make sure you send an image to me. Thank you.